Family demanded I hand over my house so brother's family could move in. They even broke my lock and tried to move furniture in while I was at work. I called police on them and now they're stuck crammed at my parents' place. I'm a single guy in my early 30s, and for most of my life, my parents made it clear that my younger brother Jason was their favorite. When we were kids, he bullied me constantly, and if I complained, my parents would just say, "Suck it up." When I turned 18, I moved out early and basically disappeared from their lives. Years later, the pandemic hit. I lost my job, and I ended up living in a small camper mounted on my truck because I couldn't afford rent. I asked my parents if I could park the camper in their driveway for a while, but they said no unless I paid them almost the same as apartment rent. My brother and his wife even laughed and called me a homeless bum. So I spent months living in parking lots until I finally found a new job in another city. I worked hard, saved every dollar, and eventually bought a small 3-bedroom manufactured house just 2 miles from my workplace. I was proud of it and made the mistake of posting about it online. A few weeks later, my parents, my brother, and his wife suddenly showed up at my door uninvited. They pushed inside like they owned the place and started looking around. My mother kept saying, "You have so much space for one person," while my brother kept talking about how close the house was to his job. Finally, he pulled me aside and said, "You should let my family move in. You already have the camper, so you can live outside." I stared at him. "You want me to live in my camper while you take my house?" He nodded like it was completely reasonable. "You don't have kids. My family needs the space." I laughed in his face. "Hell no, this is my house." The rest of my family rushed back into the room and started shouting at me. "Just do it for Jason," my mother kept repeating. My sister-in-law screamed that she was pregnant again and I was ruining their lives. When I refused, she actually punched me in the face. Luckily, I had already started recording everything on my phone. I held it up and said, "Leave now or I'm calling the police." They stormed out, but my mother said, "You have 1 week to come to your senses." A week later, they came back, banging on my door and begging to be let in. I told them through the door, "Leave, or I call the cops." They eventually went away, but a few days later I came home from work and saw a moving truck in my driveway. My brother and his wife were literally moving into my house. They had drilled out my front door lock and replaced it. I called the police immediately. When officers arrived, my parents rushed over and claimed I had agreed to rent the house to my brother. Jason even handed the cops a fake rental agreement with a forged signature. I pointed at it and said, "That's not my handwriting." I also showed the officers the destroyed lock and the drill they had used. Suddenly, my brother looked nervous. I told him, "If anything in my house is damaged, I'll sue you and report everything." My mother tried one last time. "Why can't you just do this for Jason?" I shouted back, "Because it's my house." Eventually, the police made them pack everything back into the truck. My brother's kids cried, my sister-in-law threw a tantrum on the lawn, and my parents looked completely defeated. Before they left, my mother said, "You're no longer part of this family." I just shrugged. "You treated me like that my whole life anyway." After they drove away, I told the rest of the family what happened and shared the video. Most relatives supported me immediately. Months later, my brother and his family are still living with my parents in their crowded house, while I'm finally enjoying the home I worked so hard to buy. And honestly, the peace and quiet has been worth every second.